Hello everyone, welcome to the Penthouse. I am Bo, also known as Q is Too Short. And if you missed the Elestral stream and couldn't tell by the trophy, I won the Dallas Open 2025. I was not expecting to get that far in the tournament. Had a wonderful time meeting everybody, and I know that everybody was really hoping to see the deck profile, so here it is. So starting off with our solar guys, we are on 3 Lumaru and 2 Kafma. This is on the smaller side for a standard solar package. Most solar decks will opt to run the 3rd Kafma. I just found the main deck space to be incredibly tight, and I'm also super comfortable with the list and did not feel like I needed the extra healing. Lumaru is relatively self-explanatory. It's a natural 5. It has a good enough effect. You can misenchant it with Water or Frost to play around Tsunami or Cryoblast. Just a good card. Kafmel's is a great healer, and it has great stats for being a healer. 3 attack is just enough to be aggressive at points, and 4 defense is just enough to be defensive at points. It's not great at either, but having that extra utility in that heal is good enough. Moving on to the more spicy solar options. The 2 Cybermaw, 2 Golden Fleece, and the 2 Lustricons. So Cybermaw overperformed for me. Going into the tournament, I had the opinion that it was the best worst card in the deck. With it generally not having a great stat line and Golden Fleece usually being a brick. As the tournament went on, my perspective on it changed quite a bit, from just a way to recur spirits into this is a good turn 1 play if I have back row to back it up. Because Cybermaw plus Fleece is a 4-3 that you have to destroy twice. Speaking about Golden Fleece some more, this card, of course, is a Garnet if you're specifically looking to get it off of Cybermaw. But if it was an opener or if I drew it, I usually found it as a card that would be good later on in the game. It is incredibly powerful if you stick it onto one of your win conditions, either Equilynx or the Lustragon, because then your opponent has to out it twice. And that just makes it much more likely that your win condition will either win you the game or get more value to help you secure that game. The 2-2 ratio is my preferred way of playing Cybermaw and Fleece. This gives you enough to go Cybermaw, your opponent shields Cybermaw, play Cybermaw again, find a Golden Fleece to go into Cybermaw, find the second Cybermaw, that kind of thing. Lustragon is my favorite card. This is the reason that would consider myself a solo caster. It does have its weaknesses, but it has 3 really good strengths. 1, its stat line. 7/6 means that it does not die to most 1-drops. Your opponent will probably have to commit at least 2 cards to out it, and probably 2 to 3 spirits at minimum. Just on a Golden Fleece, and it becomes a 7/8, and that's infinitely harder to just do out. It has an on-receive destruction effect, which means that Altar of Stars is now a piece of interaction that no other deck really has, and most decks are not equipped to deal with. And then it can target runes specifically. Yes, it can target Elestrals to destroy them, but usually that's only if your opponent has a threatening Elestral. Usually its 7 stat line is going to be your way of dealing with Elestrals. I usually treat it as a Equilynx with a permanent meter buff on it. I will go more over its weaknesses later on, because I do have some ideas about how the deck should change in the future. Next for our Earth guys, the Equilynx, 2 Viscerus, and then 2 Rummagins. Equilynx was another standout card from the event. It is very powerful. If get it to stick, it often puts you in such a winning position. Your opponent's counter runs are much less potent and much less likely to get value. So getting Echolinks onto the field, especially with Golden Fleece, usually means that you win the game. Viscerus underperformed heavily. Without that third one, it really does make Viscerus kind of okay at best. Its effect is still very strong. Being able to swarm the field with the second Viscerus is great. And then being able to buff itself up to a 6 at that point. The problem is that it's a threatening enough effect that it's going to be hit by every single counter run that your opponent has. And if they don't have counter runs for it, they will Cryoblast, they will Earthquake, they will Laurels it. They will do anything in their power to get at least one of the Visceruses completely out of the game. And once one of the Visceruses are gone, the second one is just a 5 that can't be misenchanted. Otherwise, it's like a 4 but doesn't mean just not. Rumagems are here because Echolinks, very powerful card, as I mentioned. Rumagems are only just okay otherwise. I rarely got into a position where Rumagem was my only play and it was like a really bad play, but it's still not amazing. It does set up nicely into Echolinks, being a Nexus Bank if you really have to, or playing with Argo very nicely. It can also get you to Viscerus if you don't have access to Nexus Banks and just need enough 5 in your hand. This is easily a card that could be cut, but Echolinks is such a game-changing card that I probably am more tempted to say that Visceruses would be the cards to cut from the Earth side of the deck. Moving on to finish our Elestrals. 3 Rabbit, Elechick, plus the 2 Demeter. So Rabbits is Rabbit. This card is great as an opener. It's great to slow the game down when you need it. It's just Rabbit. Chick, being effective 7, is very threatening. Plays very nicely with Argo with the 4 attack stat. And of course, we're on Demeters over Zeus's. Because we are on a heavy Earth package, it makes Spirit Math a little nicer, as well as being a Nexus Bank for Echolinks. There will be occasions where you will misenchant Demeter with Solar for Lustricons, but that's only if you don't have, this is like last resort. Yeah. Moving on to Invoke Runes, 3 Ambro, and the Earthquake. We are on a dual color deck with no healing for one half of it, so I would not go down on Amber chips. This also helps you recover Thunders and Waters if you need it, Frosts occasionally, and an Earthquake, we're on Earth, unconditional removal. Makes sense to play. Resting on your Laurels is not here in the main deck. I will get to it once we get to the site. Next up, counter runes. Let's start off with the more interesting ones. 2 Argo, along with the Scythe and the Necklace. This was a card that overperformed in the tournament overall. Swolex came in second, also running this Argo package, and it's just a strong package right now. It makes this plays very nicely against Lycovoid specifically. Plays nicely into other Argos. If you can fit the room and justify the spirits for it, this is a package that you should be looking at. I was this close to playing 3 copies of Argo because of how powerful it is, but it can get ugly if you do see all 3 of them through an entire game. Next up, 2 Altar Stones. This is a card that's almost always live. We are on 6 Nexus Banks as well as 5 ways to get to them. So that's over a quarter of the deck dedicated, or ways to get to Nexus Banks for Altar Star shenanigans. The main justification to play Altar of Stars in this list is Lustragon. As I mentioned, it has great synergy with Lustragon, turning this into an form of interaction that most decks struggle into. This is also a card that I ended up siding out of, especially day 2, because Lustragon was just not as good as one of the other cards in the side. You probably know it if you watch the stream. But this is a good card. I was also really tempted to bump it up to 3 copies because of how good it is with Lustragon, but opted not to because it is that a little bit conditional. And then rounding out our counter-in package, 3 Gorgons, 3 Shield, 2 Tsunami. This is really standard, especially in this meta. You could cut down on a Shield if you were looking to play a 3rd Argo, but otherwise I would not change these ratios. Let's move on to side deck, because I think talking about the side deck is more interesting than talking about the Spirit deck. So, the one card that you've all been looking forward to, the 2 Heliolith. These cards are in side. They were not in main, which is kind of shocking because of how dominant they were on every single stream match that I had at Dallas. This card is very powerful and has different strengths than Lustragon does, and was often cited over Lustragons because it is an ascension of sorts. One pro that it has over Lustragon is that it is easier to get out. You can normal cast it if you have an artifact enchanted. Either you or your opponent has that artifact. This means that you can cheat it out yourself or use it to punish your opponent's artifacts, whether that be like a Chrono Lock with Trident of Poseidon or their own Argos. And also, this card requires a lot less setup than Lustragon. Lustragon often required it to be paired alongside a Nexus Bank, along with either being properly enchanted or Altar of Stars being set. That way you can actually get its effect to be online. With Heliolith, as long as you can cast it properly enchanted, you get its bounce effect. And the bounce effect, of course, is very flexible and outs a whole load of different things. It was the reason behind playing this was that it was going to be my out to things like Chrono or Bolt Tempest. But it's also very powerful into players and decks that can really take advantage of the weaknesses of Lustragon. For other guys in the side deck, Half Mill, Double Boom Bat, Double Eddy. So Calf Mill's here, the 3rd Calf Mill's here as an option to go into for time. Rarely ever ended up playing it. Boom Bat is my option into Blistrix. I am not on Divine Blessing for the side deck. So against Blistrix, they're going to get Blistrix out of one of 2 ways. One is through Astral and the other through Rise. Divine Blessing only hits one of the 2, and it hits that one really bad, but it does nothing against the other. Boom Bat does okay into both. That's sort of the reason. I also ended up dodging the Blistrix match the entire weekend, so that's also a valid strategy, I guess. 2 Eddies are here because it's a good generic guy. Some of the guys in the main deck are not good into every single situation, not good into every single deck. So Eddies were just good as just a good guy taking place of them. I will say that once I started to realize that Cypher Mole was a good card, siding was really weird because Eddies would come in over Cypher Moles and another card would come in over to Golden Fleeces. But I probably would still keep Eddies in here because, like, if your opponent is on like a suppression heavy deck, Cap Mills are not very good into that. And then for Invoke Runes in the side, Laurels, and 2 Cryoblasts. Resting is a good card into certain decks, especially decks that are much faster and put a lot more spirits on the field quicker than this deck does. Laurels is good into, but sometimes you'll find that you need to play Laurels, but often have to get spirits off your field with this deck, and that's not really a position that you really want to be in a whole lot. So I'd rather this be like an Ambrosia or something else in some other card in the main deck. 2 Cryoblast, because Cryoblast is good into this meta. Also justifies the Frost Spirit being run in the side deck to play around opponent's Cryoblasts. Probably wouldn't take it out. If anything, I would try to fit it into main because it just hits so much stuff in the current meta. And counter runes in the side deck, 2 PTA, 2 Spoiled Fruit, and a Tsunami. The 3rd Tsunami. PTAs were the option that I would have gone into if Tsunamis were bad. 2 copies of it is perfectly fine. It's good into decks that also want to play more defensive, and usually where you can't really get over them through battle and just need to use hard removal for them. So PTA is good into those. It's good into like Equilinx. Like this is the best option into Equilinx because it instantly destroys it before Equilinx has a chance to pop the PTA itself. But I didn't really side this in all too often. Spoiled Fruits are here because they hit Draco Ray real bad. They hit heal okay enough. This card had very minimal impact in my games because I only played against heal once. And when I sided this in, I found it once and it got Hurricane. So yeah. 3rd Tsunami, because Tsunami is good into a few different decks, like Blistrix, for instance. But this could easily be another side deck option if you feel like you need something more for a specific matchup. And then we have the Spirit deck. So starting off, we have 7 Solar. Spread these out, right? 7 Earth, 3 Thunder, 2 Water, and a Frost. So as I mentioned, this Spirit deck feels comfy for me. I do recognize that 7 and 7 is a bit awkward, and sometimes you do end up in situations where you do feel low on total Solar Spirits. If you play Lustragon Turbo, for instance. If the game gives you an Earth Nexus hand, sometimes you feel low on total Earth Spirits. But generally, this felt good over the course of the entire day. Death Melts, as I said, do help with Spirit Management quite a bit. Cypher Melts also help with it. You will always dump 2 Solar as your first spirits to stay in Underworld to make sure that Capnel and Cybermull are both online. But I would also not be afraid to just play Cybermull turn 1 and just say screw the recursion mechanic, especially if you have like Argos or Altars in hand to back it up. 3 Zaptor is very comfy. Usually this is for if you open like double Rabbit and Chick, or for instance. Usually throughout the game, I will just end up dumping 2 of them pretty early on and hold on to the 3rd in case I do draw a Rabbit or a Chick. But I would not hold on to these spirits very long because they're very expendable. 2 Water for the 2 Tsunami and Misenchanting Lubarus. This felt fine. If you do side in Eddies, it can get a little bit tight, but that's why we have Ambrosias. And then the Frost, of course, Cryoblast, Misenchanting Lumarus. Usually if you're playing Lumara defensively, you'll Frost enchant it. If you're playing it aggressively, you'll Water enchant it. So that's the list. As I said, like, I do feel like there are certain changes that I would do to the list. One of them being is unfortunately taking out the Lustragons. This Celestial is very strong, but its weaknesses are very pronounced, and unless it gets like a titled Jatora that has some way to special ascend into Lustragon, getting to this card is always going to be a challenge. And it requires so much setup. Like, this is like the bare minimum support that you can play for Lustragon to be viable. This card really works best when you have other Solar Nexusers, and playing Jatora or Exaltus is kind of iffy right now. So just trying to use Lustragon plus its own effect, and then Altar of Stars is about as like the best that Lustragon can do right now. It still doesn't help that it is a hard ascension that cannot be searched unless you're playing Exaltus. And with the Lustragons, I'll probably end up taking the Altar of Stars out. This card is still very good, and it's online enough that it might still be in the deck, but I could see a very good reason for these to come out. And then, of course, Heliolists have been overperforming for me. They fit into the deck very nicely. They play much better into most things. So those are probably going to slip their way into main deck. Other than that, I don't know where this deck is going, to be honest. Maybe I'll try Sprouters out again, maybe not. We'll see. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.